Sport Clips Haircuts Help a Hero program funds scholarships for U.S. veterans who are pursuing a college degree or vocational certification. Visit your nearest Sport Clips to learn more and donate now through November 11th.
Here we are. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We got two big ones in this hour. Brian Kelly, he's waking up the echoes at Notre Dame. What a season they're having. What a big game they have tomorrow against NC State. He'll join us in a moment. And then Tim Tebow in this hour as well. So plenty of football on this Football Friday. I do just want to finish up the conversation we were having a moment ago, and then we'll dive back into the headlines of the day, which include the hit on Flacco and World Series tonight, etc. But this story that I read, this could wind up being a great thing in its own way. A terrible circumstance that involved Wilton Speight. Again, if you go to the top of my Twitter page, I tweeted the story. The parents of Wilton Speight, the quarterback at Michigan,
right? Mm-hmm.
Who say they never give interviews. Apparently, they never talk about their son, good, bad, or indifferent, which I know you appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
But they said they felt this was so important they had to, that when he got hurt, he suffered a back injury, a potentially serious one. I mean, any injury to vertebrae is a scary thing.
Yes, it is.
For a football player, that in a game that was played at Purdue, that in every conceivable way, the people involved there were so ill-prepared to handle this kind of injury that it really could have led to something catastrophic. Now, thank God it did not. And at the end of the story, the father says he's going to ultimately be fine. But if this leads to a lot of change within the Big Ten, and it has already created a lot of conversation in the Big Ten, then so be it. I mean, that would be a wonderful outcome from this. But when you read the story, some of the details in it will stun you. The things they didn't have available to them, the way this was handled. If this had been a markedly worse injury, this could have been a really bad and potentially preventable circumstance. I read it to Mike during the break, and you were really taken aback.
Listen, when we talked about this, when Jim Harbaugh talked about the locker room, I immediately, the first thing I made sure I did is I separated. I want to talk about what the lockers look like, or if it's cold or warm in there and all that, what color it is and all that kind of stuff. That's a separate issue to safety equipment for the players. And if you don't have an x-ray machine available, if you're riding to a student center instead of the hospital in a van, and an ambulance wasn't available, I mean, some of the things you read about. Safety for players in that instance has to be the number one priority when you have an injury on either facilities that are right there, or if not, a really predetermined, obviously, plan of getting that person to where they need to be without delay. Without if you read that story, well, on game days it could take us 30 to 45 minutes. Turn on the friggin' siren so you can get there sooner. I mean, which this person didn't do. So, I mean, to not have a plan in place for the player's safety if you don't have things at the facility is not. It's beyond embarrassing. I mean, it's beyond.
It's unconscionable.
It's dangerous.
Let's say it for what it is. Okay,
it really
this
is.
This is a multi-billion-dollar business. The conference, in particular, and all major college football programs are making so much money all over the place. We can sit here and debate all we want whether the players are compensated fairly or not. But one thing that I would imagine everyone agrees with is that their safety and health should be paramount in every circumstance when they're playing this game. This is not even remotely acceptable.
The timeline of reading that is you can't believe it. You can't believe it. You would think this would happen in like a high school, where you don't have as many means as you do as a big time college program of trying to get kids. But even in high schools, they have for the most part ambulances right there to take a person somewhere. That's.
It's
horrific.
eye-opening. Yes,
it really is.
It really is.
Really
it's disturbing. I posted it, and I'm looking at some of the responses immediately, and a woman named Stacy Hickson wrote back to me, "This is terrible. As a parent, I cried reading this. I'm envisioning your wife, you for that matter, but in particular, Chris." If something like this were to have happened to one of your boys, knock on wood, never did, thank God.
Yeah.
But, all of a sudden you're in this and they're not turning on the siren and all that.
And you're going through all that. Where's your insurance card? Well, what? I mean, come on.
It's a startling story, and it's told directly by the players' parents. Justin Smith tweeted at me, "This is unacceptable." So the point of it is not to criticize or crucify one place, one program, whatever the case may be. It is to make sure this doesn't happen anymore.
That's exactly right.
And the Big Ten has already initiated those kinds of conversations, and I'm glad for that. And Wilton Speight's father says he's glad for it as well. I think we would all agree that has to be, at all times, in all circumstances, the first priority.
There has to be an absolute plan for every circumstance of a player, from a minor injury to just maybe needing an X-ray to a major injury, when that person needs to get somewhere other than the stadium facility as quickly as possible. And that's an embarrassment for that situation.
Okay, so again, the story is up if you'd like to read it on Twitter. We'll get to a variety of other matters now. The Joe Flacco hit last night, obviously a lot of attention being paid to that. We'll get back to it. Game 3 of the World Series is tonight. We will get to that. But first,
yeah, buddy.
What a season they're having and what a game they have tomorrow. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish back in the top 10. Tomorrow they take on NC State in a game that has college football playoff ramifications.
Yes, it does.
And joining us on the Shell Pinto Performance Line is the head coach of the Fighting Irish, Brian Kelly. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Greeny. Good morning, Golic.
How you doing, Coach? Isn't it something after you beat these ranked teams like you're doing, just like in 2012 when you beat all the ranked teams and everybody said, oh, it's such a tough schedule, and then you win the games and then everybody goes, oh, maybe the schedule wasn't so tough. Don't you love how that always happens?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to get too caught up in it. It's difficult enough to win any games in college football. We just focus on what we need to do, and I know it sounds like coach speak, but for us, it's really about North Carolina State. They're a really good football team, so I really don't care what they think about them after, as long as we beat them.
You can go ahead. You do the coach speak. I'll take care of the yelling at the people who do that stuff for you. No problem. Let me ask you. Let me humanize this a little bit, because everybody thinks players and head coaches, are just robots and just kind of function that way. You come off a year last year with just 4 wins, and everybody, including me, is getting asked, Brian Kelly, what about his security? And my thought was, who knows about that more than anybody is Brian Kelly. He knows what the season just was. So, and I know the things you said about trying to turn it around and what happened last year to this year. But how about when you're away from the media, when you're just with family in a private moment, how does that affect you, like, as a human being, forgetting being a head coach?
Well, we're like everybody else. I mean, sometimes you guys feel the same effects of it, being in the media. You're not larger than life. You have the same feelings and the emotions that everybody else. I have 3 teenage kids. They have rabbit ears. They watch ESPN. They listen to you guys. They listen to the media. So, more times than not, you're trying to deflect most of that noise. But I think really at the end of the day, you got into this business, you guys, I did, for the reasons that we wanted to. We love what we do, and we're committed to what we do, and we believe in what we're doing. So I think at the end of the day, we just we go back to work, and we're confident that we know what we're doing.
Biggest reason, Coach, that you see, or a couple of reasons, it's never just one, from the team last year and the results to what's going on in the field this year? Well,
it's the total preparation of the team. The physical part is part of it, but it's, we made some tactical changes, in terms of the way we play the game. There's some technical changes as well in terms of teaching, and then the mental part. We lost 7 games in our last possession last year, so the mental development of our football team. So in all of those areas, the total preparation of this football team, which fell on my shoulders last year, not preparing them properly, they're much better prepared to play each and every Saturday.
Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Brian Kelly, head coach of Notre Dame, as well. Listen, I'm going to point out, Golic, you say that people like to change their tune when all of a sudden the schedule, was it so good, was it so bad?
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at a tune changer here myself.
What are you talking about?
You, for the 18 years I've known you, have been knocking the Heisman. It's a glamour award. It only goes, and then all of a sudden Notre Dame has a Heisman candidate.
They do.
And all of a sudden you love the Heisman, and it's all you want to talk about.
I don't have to love the award, but if they're going to give the award out, this guy should be right in the thought process.
So, Coach, let's talk about Josh Adams, and I'll let you make your case for him and his Heisman candidacy at this stage of the season.
Well, I think he's a terrific back. I recognize the work that all the other players are part of this conversation. Barkley and certainly Mayfield, Love, great players. I just think it's too early. I think it's great to have front runners, and the talk for the Heisman is great. I think it's great for college football, but the season is so long and there's so many pivotal and crucial games. I think the Heisman should be much more about who can obviously have this kind of season throughout the entire schedule. And we've got some big games ahead of us. You know, we're going to play North Carolina State tomorrow. We've got Miami. We've got Stanford. Wake Forest is a really good football team. Playing Navy is no joke. So I just wish that they would wait till the end of the year. And I think if you wait to the end of the year, these things really clear themselves up a lot better. But he's a fine football player. The thing that he brings us is home run potential, and that's what you're looking for, is the ability to break games open, and Josh has been able to do that for us this year.
Yeah, it's, 7 runs, I believe, of over 50 yards, and by the way, the O-line is in the running for the Joe Moore Award as a top offensive line in the country as well. And then you have your quarterback. Obviously, a lot of comparisons because of where you are, and the talk of this team goes back to 2012, where you ended up in the national championship game, and that year you had a redshirt freshman in Everett Golson as your quarterback, and this year you have a first-year starter in Wimbush, in Brandon Wimbush. So how have you seen that development for now as you are where you are and things you're looking ahead forward to, how he's coming along as a first-year starter?
Yeah, I think if you look at just the statistics, you probably wouldn't be that impressed, but his production is really quite amazing in terms of his ability to keep plays alive, third down, red zone production, really the areas where you win football games. Brandon Wimbush is an outstanding football player. The numbers, again, won't rock you, but he's a winner. He wins football games. And what he really does more than anything else is he sets up our offense and his ability to run the football. He paralyzes, some of the defensive players on the zone read option and gives us an opportunity to get up to second-level blocks and frees up Josh a lot on some of his big runs.
Mike and Mike, Brian Kelly is with us, and you sort of referenced it there indirectly. In October, everybody's season is a work in progress. So what is the one thing you feel your football team needs to be better at, to do better, in order to be the best team you can be as the season comes to its end?
Well, I think, like anything else, we'd want to see, continued production from the passing game. As much as Brandon has been extremely productive in terms of red zone, third down, moving the chains, we'd like to throw the ball a little bit better. And that is coming with his maturity and seeing things from an offensive standpoint. And I think defensively, just the maturity of our secondary, continue to communicate, continue to do the little things right. We're doing a great job taking the football away. We've given up one rushing touchdown this year. That's, obviously off the charts. But I think those two areas, communication in the back end of the defense and higher, passing efficiency from the quarterback position.
Brian Kelly, Notre Dame head coach, joining us. They take on North Carolina State tomorrow in South Bend. Can't wait to be there and watch that one again. And let's talk about the real side of the ball. I was getting to that, and that's the defense, because we know that wins championships. So I figured I'd go to that side of the ball. And Mike Elko taking over, on that as a defensive coordinator. You already have more sacks than you had last year. When you talked about schematically, I certainly see the change of differences on defense as well. So give a little love to that side of the ball, which is getting way more pressure on the quarterback this year.
Mike's done an incredible job. I think it starts, Mike, and you know this, and Greeny, it's always about what you do up front. And our defensive line has been, a night and day difference from last year. Their ability to control the line of scrimmage, get pressure from a four-man rush, tackles for a loss, all the things that, good defenses need to start with. And Mike Elston has done an incredible job there and really remaking the guys that were here last year, just playing at a higher level. They're more physical, they're stronger, their technique is better. And within Mike Elko's system, they've really, really flourished.
You know, I wonder, when I was there last weekend, my brother Bob was there. I know you talked about them and had him up. It was the reunion of the 1977 National Championship year, 40 years ago. I wonder, and it's certainly wouldn't be against the players of today if they did, but do some of them look at them old guys and say, man, are they old? Holy smokes.
No, you know, it's interesting. There really is a respect and reverence to winning a national championship. And look, they're from Notre Dame, and they know the grind. They know what they have to embrace to get to a national championship. And I think all college players do, how difficult it is. Alabama, they know how. You know, Nick talks about it all the time. You know, they're told how great they are each and every week, but yet they got to go out there and get it done. When you see a national championship team, there's such an identification with what they accomplished that age is not even seen. It's just the accomplishment of winning a national championship.
I just wanted to kind of rip him a little bit because my brother Bob was there, and he just turned 60 yesterday, so I was just trying to give him a hard time. I know it was recently your birthday as well, but it was cool to see. I mean, I think they had 80 of those players, a huge amount of players there. It was very, very cool. That was a great year, and a lot of people making the comparisons of this year, but I know from your side of it, it's North Carolina State, and that's it right now. So we look forward to the game tomorrow, Coach, and appreciate a few minutes this morning.
Good luck, Coach. Thank you.
Thanks, Greeny. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
See you.
Brian Kelly, head coach of Notre Dame. Again, they have a big one tomorrow against North Carolina State. And, Mike, it has been a while. What you graduated, 85?
85, yes.
So it was just a few years later. Oh, that's not the one I meant to hit. I'm sorry. I have to reach all the way over there. Anyway, this would be the first time, if Notre Dame wins this weekend, it would be the first time since 1989 that they beat top 15 teams in the AP poll in consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
So they beat USC, and then, of course, USC falls out of that. And now if they beat NC State will fall out of that. But it's about where these teams were ranked when you played them, which is the same reason that, you look at these things, it's so difficult because you make schedules years in advance, right? So the Alabama schedule, they opened with Florida State. Florida State, we all thought was like a national championship team. All of a sudden, people are saying, well, Alabama hasn't played anybody. They scheduled a game against, I think Florida was number 3. Florida State was number 3 in the country.
It was scheduled as a big game. Their quarterback gets hurt. Everything changes.
And you know what I'm saying? So,
yes.
Notre Dame, if I will say it again. I said it yesterday. I know 538 disagrees with me, and they've got a lot of data, and all I've got is my own opinion. I believe if Notre Dame wins out, and it's a tough road because they got to beat NC State, they got to beat the U, and they got to beat Stanford. They have other games as well. But if they win out, I strongly believe they will wind up one of the Final Four.
Yeah, listen, I think so as well. Let's see how it plays out, just like Coach said, as far as the Heisman, let's see how it plays out. And let's see this game. This is going to be a good game. North Carolina State, I think, has 19 rushing touchdowns. Their quarterback, Finley, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. And just like Coach said and what I've been saying, the passing game for Notre Dame, will it get tested? Will you have to pass yourself into a game? And that will be something if they have to. And then you look at, also when you're watching this game, you're going to look at NFL talent. Bradley Chubb, the defensive end for North Carolina State, is a big-time talent, and rusher. Mike McGlinchey, the offensive tackle, he's rated number 1 offensive tackle coming in next year. The left guard for Notre Dame, Quentin Nelson, he may be the best lineman in the country. He's rated as a number 1 guard in the NFL. So North Carolina State has an excellent D-line, Notre Dame an excellent offensive line. So this would be a nice in-the-trenches game to watch.
All right, a good game coming up tomorrow, one of several good games tomorrow. Tim Tebow will join us in a little bit to talk about it. But right now, let's do this.
Right now on Mike and Mike, let's go. It's time for the 5-Point Stance.
Do a 5-point stance brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit them at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. Number 5, the Browns have lost 24 straight games played on Sundays.
Oh.
That's the second longest streak in NFL history, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. Mike, are the Browns going to go winless this season?
I don't think so. I think they'll win a game. The main thing for their development, which we've been waiting for years for, is I'll continue to say they need to just keep Deshaun Kaiser in for the rest of the season and see what you have with him, whether you're going to continue with him or go a different direction.
Number 4, Drew Brees enters this week with 5,988 career completions. So on his 12th completion this week, he'll be the third quarterback in history with 6,000 completions, joining Brett Favre and Peyton Manning, and he will get there faster than either of them did.
He brings one of the biggest question marks of what's going to happen at the end of the season. He wants to keep playing. He's going to be owed big money. His deal's up. Is it going to be in New Orleans if they feel they're getting close, which right now they're leading their division, or will he be playing somewhere else?
Number 3, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, and Dak Prescott each have streaks of 3 straight games with 3 passing touchdowns. That's tied for the longest such streak by a first or second year player since 2001. It's an impossible question. But if I gave you one of those 3 guys right now, which one are you taking?
I mean, for the long haul, I'm probably going with Carson Wentz. I'm probably leaning down that road. But, I mean, it's splitting hairs. It's absolutely splitting hairs with how good these 3 have become. And I think one of the big things to realize is some of these involved trades that they all ended up on pretty good teams when they first got there.
Meanwhile, at number 2, let's keep talking about Deshaun Watson, who leads the league in total QBR right now, faces Seattle this weekend. The Seahawks are 5-0 in the regular season against players with the highest total QBR in the NFL under Pete Carroll. So what gives here this weekend, Mike, the rookie or the defense?
Well, I listen, if you're going to make me go, I'm going to go with the defense, the experience of a defense. Oh, by the way, they just signed Dwight Freeney as well as an extra pass rusher. But Deshaun Watson, he plays well on the move, and in this one I think he's going to have to be on the move some.
And finally, the Falcons have lost 3 straight after starting 3-0. There's a common thread to the losses. They're all against AFC East teams. They play the Jets this weekend. Will it become 4 straight against the AFC East?
Against your Jets?
Against the Jets.
Jets have a good
Jets.
defense. That offense hasn't been clicking for Atlanta. They got some issues going on right now. I do think they win this game.
If so, if the Falcons were to lose, they may wind up winning the NFC South, but they would definitively lose the AFC East.
Yes, they would.
As they would wind up 0-4 against that division. We'll talk football with Tim Tebow next.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
As a Marine serving in Afghanistan, I conducted logistics patrols in some of the world's most dangerous places.
The Sport Clips Help a Hero Scholarship Program helps military veterans like Jacob Dietz transition into civilian life.
The Sport Clips Help a Hero Scholarship is helping me get a degree in electrical engineering.
You can donate to Help a Hero at all participating Sport Clips locations. And on Veterans Day, November 11th, Sport Clips will donate $1 for every cut. Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy.
Been too long since we've said hello to our friend Tim Tebow, now doing great work at the SEC Network and more. Hello, Tim.
What's up, guys? How are we doing?
We're doing well. Long time no talk. I'm glad to have you back here with us. And I want to start, we'll get to some of the SEC games. I actually want to start with Ohio State, Penn State, because you can take us a place we can't go, and that is the way Urban Meyer is going to get his team ready. You played for him, of course, at Florida, and he's got a team now that the world is basically saying that this is Penn State's game, this is Penn State's year, they're the better team. And Urban Meyer's getting his team ready with that as the backdrop, playing at home. Take us where we can't go. What would you imagine he's saying to his players about this game tomorrow?
Well, I can guarantee you one thing. Every single person on ESPN or any other sports show that has picked Penn State or said something fantastic about Saquon Barkley or Trace McSorley, he has it up on the locker room, and he is using it as motivation for his team. I guarantee you, above every single toilet, above every single locker, above every single bar in the weight room, there are going to be so many quotes that are going to be hyping them up. And he has used the score from last year's game to motivate his team. He has been preaching it to J.T. Barrett every single week, and obviously they've kind of turned things around from the Oklahoma game. But he is using last year's loss and then the hype and the Heisman to motivate his players. That's something that he is a master at, and it's one of the best things that he does.
And talking about motivation, I went through it last week where my school, Notre Dame, the big rival is USC, and what goes all into that. How about Florida, Georgia? Take us inside the preparation for that week and just how much more, emotion there can be.
Well, it's for a lot of us Gators growing up and then going to Florida, it's one of the most emotional games we'll play in because, they call it the largest outdoor cocktail party. At least they used to call it. I think that's frowned upon now. Now they call it a big get-together. and I'll tell you, one of the most unbelievable sights in college football is when we would always stay by the beach, and you're driving over the bridge to get to downtown, and you get to the top of the bridge, and you could look out, and you could literally see over 1 million people partying downtown. And that's when it would kind of hit you. Dang, this is a big game. This is for real. And it is going to be for real for all these teams, especially Georgia being in the top 4. They know that most of the time when Georgia's been ranked in this game, Florida's got an upset. And then, it doesn't matter what the rankings are. You can throw that out because it is going to be an absolute war. And it's been very chippy this week. There's been a lot of players going back and forth and talking a lot of trash. So I expect it to be a very, very emotional game.
Let's talk for a minute about Georgia, and the Gator and you might have to put aside that for a minute. But you look over the games they've won. Their biggest win so far is that 1-point win over Notre Dame. We can parse schedules all we want, but you know what your eyes are seeing. How good is this year's Georgia team?
I think they're really good, Greeny. I think that this Georgia team, Kirby Smart is building them like an Alabama team. They're really good up front on both sides of the ball. Their best positions are running back and linebacker, but they also are very deep at the defensive front position. And they also have some great leaders. Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Raekwon Smith. These guys aren't just first-year players. They've been playing a lot of football. And I think this team is really united. And then they found a quarterback in Fromm that can take care of the football. And, he doesn't make a bunch of plays, but he's not turning the football over at all. And they're very confident. And, by the way, you should be confident when you can blow people off the line of scrimmage. They're a very good team.
One thing I want to go back to, and you said how it's getting chippy and there's some trash talking. Listen, obviously your college career was just unbelievable with what you did, and you were an emotional player, but always, and you are, a very, very nice guy. Did you talk smack? Were you a trash talker out there?
Golic, maybe you could have got me to talk some trash. I honestly wasn't a big trash talker. I mean, I would definitely try to impose my will on people and give them run them over at time to time to give my team a spark, but I never really did it too much with words. I mean, but people would talk trash to me, especially say whatever about, my faith or something like that. And, I'll just look at them as they're walking away and I'll give them like a really harsh God bless or something, and that would totally get under their skin. They wouldn't know how to take it, Golic, It was like, what?
Listen, I'm telling you, I agree, because that was Reggie White as well. Reggie didn't swear. Reggie didn't do anything. But I don't think he ever hit anybody with a stern God bless or anything like that. But that would have thrown me, because we're different in that. But my smack talk was basically 2 words and it ended in you. So, which is certainly different from your smack talk. So yes, I would have looked at you kind of differently if you'd given me a very stern God bless. But after the game, I may have really appreciated that.
Mike Tim Tebow is with us. Let's stay in the SEC for a second, because people will look at Alabama and they're blowing everybody out. And then you know what happens, because fans like to be contrarians. They will point to the schedule and they say, well, Florida State, their season has not gone anywhere near the way it was expected to. So who have they played? So I'll ask you the same question. Is this a vintage Alabama team? Are they the best team in the country?
Yeah, I really think so right now. And I think if you look from top to bottom, and it's not because of their schedule. I agree. I don't think they've played a great schedule. I don't think they've played a great team yet. But what they've done is whoever has lined up across from them on offense, defense, or special teams, they have been absolutely blown away. And this team has dominated as much as any Alabama team has in the past. Now, I don't know if they're as good as any team because they haven't necessarily played anybody. But they're going to get a chance at the end of this year, because in the next couple of weeks, they got LSU, they got Auburn, and they'll probably get Georgia in the SEC championship game. So they will be tested. And it would be great to see what happens when this team is tested. But this team is a deep team. And, I mean, that's what happens when you have the number 1 recruiting class in the country for 5 years in a row. You've got a lot of depth. And, by the way, Jalen Hurts is also not being talked about that much, but he is having a phenomenal season. And I think it hurts him as far as Heisman talk, because his team is so good, because he's got a backup quarterback that every time he comes in a game, he throws touchdowns, and he's got great receivers and all these running backs and a great defense that scores as much as other teams' offense does. So I think that hurts him, but I do think he's a great player. And I think this Alabama team is for real. And they're a team that it's going to be very hard for me to pick against in the future until I see some team that is really playing well.
Talking to Tim Tebow, our SEC college football analyst and also baseball player as well. You know, from when I played to you played to now, it's been three different ways. When I played, it was basically all by the polls. Even after the bowl games, and the polls decided who the national champ was. When you played, it was more along the lines of the polls decided the top two, and then they played for a championship. Now, 13 people sit in a room and decide which four teams are going to be there at the end. So now I'm putting you in that room, and we've seen conference championships not matter. Head-to-head at times certainly not matter. If you're in that room and it's the Tim Tebow criteria for how you rank the top four teams, what are the main things on your criteria list?
Well, that's a really good question, Golic, and I think that when people talk about best team, which is what they say right now, is what is the best team? What does that mean? I would like to define that even more. Does the best team mean the most dominant team? Does the best team mean that they played the best against the best teams? Does it mean the best strength of schedule, the best strength of record? What exactly does that mean? And, you know, for me, the way I define it is by being a former player, by being an analyst, by looking on the film and seeing, you know, who is the best team, and watching them from the standpoint of, if this team matched up to this team, who do I think would win and who do I think is the best team? But I also love college football because I want the team, not just the best team at the end of the season, but the team that deserves it the most. And I don't always think those align. And so I think that's really a predicament for the College Football Committee, is the most deserving versus the best at the time. Because if you say, Ohio State playing right now, Ohio State might be the top four if you were deciding college football right now and how they're playing. But they're not. They're by far not the most deserving, because their biggest game, they got smoked at home against Oklahoma. So if we were deciding right now, I would be torn, because I would say, yes, they're playing extremely well because they've grown up. JT Barrett is playing better, but they got their biggest game and they got their fannies whooped at home. So that's where I think the College Football Playoff Committee is in a predicament, because that's a tough place to be.
Do you like the system?
I love the system. I love the college football playoff. I wish I got to play in the college football playoff. I think the hype, getting more chances as if you're a Gator, to play a Notre Dame, to play a Southern Cal, to play all these teams in a semifinal and national championship. I think it's great. I think it's great for college football. It's the BCS worked out pretty well for us, but I would still love to have been involved in a college football playoff system, because I think it's awesome.
Tim, it's great to talk to you again. You're doing great work, and I'm sure we'll check in again soon. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend.
For sure, guys. Great talking to you.
With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of discovering the last donut.
Ooh.
And it has your name on it, literally, in chocolate sprinkly things.
No way.
Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
Forward Thinking brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more in car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO.
Here's the Forward Thinking. This weekend, our NFL games. Chargers head to New England, take on the defending Super Bowl champs. Coverage begins noon Eastern on ESPN Radio. That's an interesting game. The Chargers are a better team than their record would suggest. They had a couple of kicks they missed early in the season, or they would have two more wins. They've won 3 straight, and they're playing really good defense.
Right.
They're coming east. Now, they have no home field advantage. Every game they play at home, the other team has more fans. But it is one of these West Coast teams coming east to play the Patriots in an early start. What do you see in that game?
Oh, I see New England winning that game is what I see. The Chargers have been interesting this year, no doubt about it, with their close game, something we're used to seeing out of them, but I see New England winning this one.
Twitter reaction comes through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes up for a football obsession like bouquets from 1-800-Flowers.com. And when you order a dozen red or assorted roses for only $29.99, you get another dozen plus a vase absolutely free. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. A lot of Twitter reaction to the story I posted. And let me make clear, people are saying, Greeny, thank you for telling this. It's not my story.
Yeah, you didn't write it.
This was in the Detroit News. the parents of the Michigan quarterback Wilton Speight told in detail the story of what happened after he got injured at Purdue. And it's a really disturbing story. And I'm pleased to tell you, again, this because you're just reading it now, people may feel like this just happened. This happened several weeks ago.
Right.
The Big Ten has already initiated conversations about making sure that appropriate medical and safety equipment are available at every one of their stadiums as well. They absolutely should.
I can't believe what I'm reading with that, quite honestly. Because, again, when we talked about when Jim Harbaugh was bringing up the facilities, I separated immediately. There's safety for the player, like, X-ray machines or whatever else you need for the safety of a player, and what your locker looks like, or if it's hot or cold in there, things like that. This is beyond embarrassing. If all this stuff is true, it is beyond embarrassing that you don't have a plan for a player, whether it's a minor injury and just needs an X-ray, to a major injury and a person actually needs to be transported from the stadium to a facility. Reading in the story, what they don't know what facility they're going to send him to. They're asking for an insurance card. The driver of the ambulance is when it's going to be too long in traffic, and he's asked, turn the siren on. He's saying, don't get smart with me. You said it wasn't a life-threatening situation. I mean, are you kidding?
Bad.
I mean, are you absolutely serious with what you want to talk? Not only I can't fathom as a father was sitting there with his son, that if that EMT driver said that to me, of what may have happened once we got to that hospital, of who else may have needed some assistance as well. I can't even fathom that going on. And again, as I said, it sounds like maybe sometimes you don't have the means in a high school, depending on where you are, it may be a difficult trek if you have a major injury. But this, are you kidding? The Big Ten school, a Power 5 school, there's zero excuse. I know you don't like 100%, but I like 0% of this. There is zero excuse to not have a plan from a minor injury to a major injury.
If you haven't seen the story that we're talking about, I posted it. It's from the Detroit News, but it's at the top of my page on Twitter at ESPN Greeny if you'd like to read it. And it is the parents' version of the events.
Yeah.
It is their telling of the events, but it is certainly something that it's getting a lot of reaction, and you'll see why. All right, what do you have?
To end on a bit of a lighter note, just having Tim Tebow on. John tweets in, today we learned that Golic and Tebow had similar trash talk techniques since they both ended in U. Which is very true. As Tim Tebow came on, I said, did you ever trash talk? And he doesn't. He's not a guy that swears, but
right.
He said he would hit a player who was trash talking him with a stern, God bless you. And I hit people with a stern, blank you. So it was very different, but they did both end in you. And I told him, I really would have been startled had I been trash talking someone and he said, God bless you. I first would have thought I didn't sneeze. And then I don't think I would have reacted as nicely as I should have until maybe after the game when I had a chance to really think about it and say, that was really nice of that person to want God to bless him.
All kidding aside, he is just genuinely a very good guy. And I thought that was a good interview with him there where he looked through a lot of games. Very quickly, Golic's
very
pick.
quickly. My Golic versus Geeks, I'm down 4-3 to the Geeks. The Nerds, I'm going with Carolina at Tampa over Tampa. The Nerds have given Tampa Bay, I think, 4.5-point spread in that one. Carolina played horrible against Chicago. Cam, again, really ticked off. I think they play well after something like this. I'm not sold on Tampa Bay much right now. Carolina goes to Tampa, gets the win.
Big game in the division. Huge weekend, obviously, with the World Series and all the football. Enjoy it, and we'll be back in better than ever Monday. Mike and Mike.